Mike here, head trader at True Trading Group, March 20th. Nice day. I'm going to cover with you today something called an exhaustion gap. Okay, an exhaustion gap is typically when a stock has a huge move higher, for an extended period of time. I'm not talking about for 1 day or 2 days. I'm talking about a steady, consistent uptrend that is already at the top end of an extended move, and the stock has gotten kind of parabolic, and then you get a big gap up from there, and that is called an exhaustion gap up. And then typically what I like to do when I see those exhaustion gap ups is I like to wait for that. I like to wait for like a front side weakness kind of breakdown, and then I'll short the backside weakness. It's exactly what I did today in SMAR. Since I covered the position, we're getting kind of some blanket buy programs come across the market and across a lot of mid and large cap names. Fed rate decision unchanged, but kind of the big mantra here to take away from the Fed rate decision is that a lot of people were expecting 2 rate hikes in 2019. They've now lowered the probability of that to 0 rate hikes in 2019. Lowered GDP growth expectations slightly. And like I said, now forecasting 0 rate hikes in 2019 is a pretty big deal. Also expecting to be done with the balance sheet runoff in September, which is earlier than a lot of people expected. So definitely some really bullish comments coming out of the Fed today, and that's why you're getting kind of this blanket buy program kick into the markets. I'll just take you guys real quick to the SPY. You guys see what I'm talking about. Here's the Fed announcement. You can see we're getting some pretty clean buying here on the SPY as we were down a couple hundred points on the day, now pushing well on the Dow, down a couple hundred points, now pushing well into the green. So once that happened, I just exited the short position, but I caught that move to the downside here on SMAR to the short side, and I'm going to go over with you why I went after this, and it's because of an exhaustion gap. Okay, so now let's go to a daily chart on SMAR, and this is what I want to talk to you guys about on SMAR. You can see a massive uptrend that this stock has been in ever since January. Okay, 2019, this stock has been absolutely on fire. You talk about a move from 22 all the way up to all-time highs of 46 in the first 2.5 months of 2019. Okay, what I also want you to notice as I zoom this in is you started to get some parabolic movement, okay, in mid-March when you had this extension move, these huge range candles. You can see how wide the range started to get on these candles, and that's one thing that I want you to look for when you're trying to identify exhaustion gaps. An exhaustion gap, leading up to the exhaustion gap, you should see wide ranges on the day for that stock. Okay, you don't want to necessarily go back and take a look at, some like small day range candles like this, and then you get a gap up to here and be like, oh, exhaustion gap. You really want to see really, wide range candles showing you that momentum has just gotten out of control in the stock, and then it's gotten kind of parabolic. And you can see that these last few days in here in March, we've gotten kind of parabolic on the daily chart, and then you had the big gap up today. We were gapping up right there. Okay, so that I considered that, like, guys, I'm looking for an exhaustion gap up, new all-time highs. If I get weakness off the bell, okay, I will look to try to get short SMAR to fade the gap and try to catch an exhaustion gap up move. That was my game plan here coming into the day on SMAR. Okay, so right off the bell, as soon as the market opened up, we dropped like a brick. 3 points from 49 straight down to 46. That initial action in the market right off the bell was the signal that I needed to say, there's my front side weakness. I'm now going to look to get short SMAR and try to fade this exhaustion gap that I was looking for pre-market. And on this little bounce back candle here, I got short right there at $47. I'll take it to my trade announcements on the day. Here we go. You guys can see at 937 short SMAR 47. My stop loss was going to be just over VWAP at the 48.25 area. Okay, so I'm risking this back. VWAP at the time of my entry was right around 48, and I was risking just above that 48 level. VWAP starts to work its way down. You can see we pop up and test VWAP. We get denied. pull ourselves back down to that 46 level, pop up again, test view up again, get denied, and just patience on this trade, guys, waiting for us to break down below 46. 46 was going to be a key level. I always expected there to be support at 46 because that is the previous all-time high. You see this line at 46? Watch what happens when I go to the daily chart. You see how it lines up perfectly with the previous all-time high. So I was expecting there to be a level of support there. That would be, if you were trying to get long SMAR, that's a good place to get long. Okay, so I'm expecting that this support to be there, so I wasn't really too surprised to see these bounces. Stuck to my stop loss up there above 48. We never got back to 48. We finally rolled it. We finally broke down below that 46, and I started taking profits off, okay, down along the way as we extend lower. Back to my trade announcements here, you guys can see 10:42, so about an hour and 5 minutes after the initial short entry. Took some oh, nope, sorry, wrong ticker. We also traded solo today, guys. Made a little bit of money on that solo. But this video, for the purpose of this video, I'm going over the lesson here on SMAR. I'm going to cover solo with you too. It was a really nice TTG triangle pattern. I'll cover the solo trade with you too. So here you guys can see at 10:53, so over an hour after that entry point, took some profit, covered SMAR 45.54, and then at 11 a.m. took more off at 44.80. The bulk of my position from that 47 short entry. There's the bulk of the cover, and I was holding on to one last piece, okay, for a stop loss on that last piece back above 46, and I really liked this to roll over more in the afternoon and give me a complete gap fill with a final target down here to 43.50. But we had the Fed announcement, and it kind of changed everything. As soon as the announcement came out, you just saw buy programs step in kind of across everything, and SMAR was no exception. You can see as soon as the announcement at 2 o'clock, bang, you get a rally back as we push back above VWAP, and I had no intentions of holding on to the rest of that position. So I covered it as soon as we got that pop. Final take profit at 45.75. So profitable all the way around on the trade. Was a nice trade, and it was all on the back of recognizing what I call not what I call it. It is what it is called, an exhaustion gap. Okay, an exhaustion gap. You can play this same thing. You can play this to the downside as well. So if you get a stock that's just completely oversold and then gives you, an exhaustion gap down, you can look for it to finally stick a low, and you can try to get long for a bounce off that area. It works both ways. I don't like to necessarily do that because, I try not to catch falling knives. But when I get the exhaustion gap to the upside, I'm not just blindly shorting into strength of the gap up. I'm waiting for a technical signal that we have weakness and that gap up was an exhaustion gap, and it was this action right off the bell that told me this is an exhaustion gap, and now wait for a bounce back to get short. And then I rode the backside weakness, missed the front side weakness, but that's fine because it would have been very dangerous to have just immediately gotten short right off the bell. So I waited for that front side weakness, and I caught the backside weakness, and it was a really nice trade. Okay, now let's go to solo. We'll go over solo with you. Okay, here you guys have solo gap up. We kind of pulled it in, and then really out of nowhere, we kind of snuck up on everybody. Snuck up on me in chat too as well. But we broke through the initial morning high. There's your initial morning high. We broke through it with the heaviest volume the stock had traded so far on the day. Okay, when that happens, you look for that previous high to hold as an area of support. What I liked at this moment was the 38.2 Fibonacci level, okay, lined up dead even with that initial morning high. Look at that 38.2 Fib level, dead even with that initial morning high, and then we had VWAP coming in right here as well. So right on this pullback, guys, let me zoom in a little bit for you. Okay, right on this pullback, I got long right here. It was really a sick entry point. Probably one of my best entries that I've had in a while. 1040 long solo at 426 with such microscopic risk down below that previous high and around the 410 area. The low of this pullback was 423. So that 426 fill was just sick. One of my better fills in a while. But what I really want to talk to you about here is back to the volume. I see how you had the heaviest volume of the day on the break through the high. Notice the volume on the pullback. Significantly lighter volume as you get a calm, orderly, slow pullback down into support. And right here becomes your buying zone. Okay, you guys can see we get in there long, and all of a sudden we have another nice increase in volume that takes us back up to the high of the day. Okay, and when you see this type of action, when you get this type of move, your first take profit, or at least my first take profit, what I teach our members is in front of that current high. So I went ahead and I took some profit off right in front of that high. Back to my trade. I'll show you my trade announcements. You guys can see took some profit off at 454 and then at 1044. So for just 4 minutes after the entry, that's how quick this trade was. I sold the bulk of the position at 464 for a decent little gain there from that 426 entry. And I was holding on to one last piece, trying to see if we can squeeze up towards 5. And you guys can see we just weren't able to do so. We weren't able to break through highs there. I ended up exiting that last piece of that position right here as we ended up breaking back down below that initial morning high, and then we're rallying back. Okay, now, like, again, after that the Fed announcement, buying, just stepping into everything here, even small caps, which usually have a lot less institutional action in them. But you're seeing, another rally back there, but I exited this position already. So completely flat. That solo was a decent gain. Completely flat. The SMAR on the exhaustion gap up, that was a nice short. And that's kind of, I took a tier 1 loss on MTFB. This was nothing really. This, I was just waiting for a potential double bottom gap up. I'll draw it out for you guys. Okay, you can see the initial morning low lined up with the 38.2 Fibonacci level. And then you can see we had the trade line coming up here as well. So I just took a tier 1 entry right here. I'll take it back to my trade announcements. I took a tier 1 entry at 340. Okay, see, it's a tier 1 entry at 340 to see if we get a double bottom gap up. If the trade line held support and pushed us back above VWAP, I would have added to tier 2. Okay, up in here back through VWAP. First take profit would have been in front of the high. Would have held on to the rest, looked for a new high, but you can see we never got the double bottom gap up triggered. We broke through lows, and I stopped out of the tier 1 position. Okay, right here at 318, I sold out of the tier 1 position. Okay, but again, tier 1 on the potential double bottom gap up. So small loss, was only in 25% of the desired position size. So it was a small little loss. So walking away from the day with nice gains in solo and nice gains in SMAR. All right. So that's an exhaustion gap, guys. For those that like to short, you can try to look for this. But again, a couple keys I want you to keep in mind when focusing on shorting an exhaustion gap is A, you want to see a long extended uptrend. Not talking 1 or 2 days. I'm talking a long extended uptrend. And then over the last week or so, you want to see that parabolic move to the upside, wide ranging candles, and then a big gap up. That's going to be your exhaustion gap up. Don't be a hero. Wait for the front side weakness. Catch the backside weakness on that short, just like we did on SMAR. All right? I'll see you guys in chat. Take care.